If you're a leader in risk, fraud, or compliance, you can feel it, can't you? The ground is definitely shifting under our feet. In this briefing, we're going to cut through the noise and give you a really clear, neutral map of the risk orchestration market and what it actually means for your strategy heading into 2026.
So, for what feels like forever, our industry has operated in these neat little silos. You've got your KYC tool over here, a fraud platform over there, a whole separate system for AML, and, another one for credit decisioning. The problem? None of these things talk to each other. It creates massive inefficiency, huge blind spots, and honestly, a pretty clunky experience for your customers. That old way of doing things, it's just not going to cut it anymore.
And this really gets to the heart of it. The entire market is rallying around this one big idea, and I think Datos Insights nailed it with this quote: "We're moving beyond point solutions." It's not about finding a slightly better fraud tool anymore. It's about unified platforms that can orchestrate all your data and all your decisions across the entire customer journey. This isn't just some passing trend. It's a total reinvention of how we manage risk.
All right, so here's our game plan. We've talked about why we need to move past point solutions. Next, we're going to map out the entire market landscape for 2026. Then we'll dig into the key trends that are forcing everyone's hand. And we'll wrap up with a practical framework you can actually use to make your next big decision.
Okay, let's dive right in. To really get a handle on this market, you have to break it down. We see 5 main categories of players out there. And what's so interesting is that each one comes at this core orchestration puzzle from a completely different angle.
First up, you've got the data orchestration platforms. Think of companies like Alloy and LexisNexis Risk Solutions. Their whole philosophy isn't about being the decision-making brain. They want to be the central nervous system. Their job is to be the connective tissue, linking your entire ecosystem of vendors through one single API. And their big strength? It's the sheer breadth of their integrations. Alloy, for example, connects to over 250 data sources, and their rock-solid maturity in complex enterprise settings. So, if that first group is the nervous system, this second category, well, these guys are the brain. We're talking about the AI-native risk decisioning platforms. Companies like Ocellar, the new powerhouse of secure and effective, and Feedzai, they represent a totally modern way of thinking. They put machine learning at the absolute center of every single decision. We're talking crazy fast, sub-100 millisecond latency, and platforms that are already protecting trillions of dollars in transactions. Their game is all about speed, adaptability, and the powerful intelligence they've built right into their models.
Next, we've got the heavyweights, the enterprise financial crime suites. These are the established incumbents, right? NICE Actimize, which has the #1 market share in AML, and Featurespace, protecting over 500 million consumers. These are the platforms that have served the world's largest banks for years. Their strength? Deep regulatory know-how, and a scale that has been proven and battle-tested time and time again.
Now, what if you're tired of putting in an engineering ticket every time you need to tweak a fraud rule? That's exactly where our fourth category fits in, the low-code decisioning engines. Companies like Provenier and Tectile are built to empower the business users, the risk and compliance teams themselves, to build, test, and roll out complex decision workflows using intuitive, visual tools. This gives them just incredible speed and agility.
And finally, there's the do-it-yourself, or open-source route. For companies that have a really strong engineering culture, tools like N8N offer complete flexibility. You get zero vendor lock-in, and you can build a totally custom fraud pipeline. But, and this is a big but, the trade-off is huge. Your team is on the hook for building and maintaining everything, from the data integrations all the way to the compliance logic itself. Okay, so we've mapped out the players, but let's ask the big question. Why is all of this happening right now? These aren't just little trends. These are powerful undercurrents that are forcing every single institution to rethink their entire risk stack from the ground up. First off, market consolidation. You just have to look at Socura's recent $136 million acquisition of Effective. That move wasn't random. It was explicitly done to create a single, unified platform for identity, fraud, and orchestration. We're seeing more and more of these big strategic mergers as everyone races to offer that one-stop solution. You've also got the regulators putting the pressure on. A perfect example is NACHA's new ACH fraud monitoring rules that are set to hit in 2026. These new rules are basically forcing institutions to get much more sophisticated with their fraud detection, which means those old legacy systems just aren't going to cut it. It's a huge push to modernize. But the biggest driver of all might be the technology itself. We are in the middle of a massive shift away from static, rules-based systems to truly dynamic,
AI-native decisioning. And it's not just about better models anymore. We're starting to see things like agentic AI. Think of an AI that can actually start an investigation on its own. And even tools that let you create complex risk rules just by describing them in plain English. It's a game changer.
So you see the landscape, you see the forces at play, but what do you do with all this information? How do you apply it to your own institution? Let's turn all this analysis into action with a simple, practical framework to help guide you.
First things first, start with your data. Take a hard look at your data ecosystem. How many different third-party vendors for identity, fraud, and credit data do you really need to plug into? Answering that one question will immediately tell you whether you need a platform with tons of pre-built integrations or if something more focused will work just fine.
Next, you've got to get clear on your philosophy. Are you ready to go all in on AI-driven models being the core of your strategy? Or, for your business, does it make more sense to stick with the rules-first approach that you can clearly explain, maybe with AI augmenting it? There's really no wrong answer here, but you have to know where you stand.
Then you have to be realistic about your compliance burden. A global, Tier 1 bank has a universe of regulatory demands that are completely different from a nimble fintech startup. The platform you choose absolutely has to match the depth and complexity of your specific regulatory world.
And finally, be brutally honest about your team's resources. Does your risk team need to be self-sufficient with low-code tools to move fast, or do you have the engineering firepower and the desire to build and maintain a completely custom solution? This one question will probably do more than anything to point you to the right category of players. And that brings us right to the final takeaway. The market is converging. There's no doubt about it. As the entire industry shifts away from these fragmented tools and towards smart, unified platforms, the one critical question you have to ask yourself is this: is my risk stack truly ready for 2026?